Okay, thanks for joining this fourth annual International Day of Women in Statistics and Data Science Conference with this year's theme, Thriving in Your Environment. We're recording the event and the videos will be available on the Caucus for Women in Statistics YouTube channel. We kindly ask you to post your questions to the speakers in the Q&A chat. Without further ado, I'm delighted to host this session. This is number 107, Thriving in Statistics in New Zealand, and I will introduce our speakers. I'm going to stop sharing just for a moment. Right, sorry, not as fluent as I hoped I would be. Thank you to the caucus for the opportunity to talk about thriving in statistics in New Zealand. There are 4 of us presenting today. We're all statisticians working in various roles in New Zealand. We all want to thrive where we are, and we see a critical part of that is through networks and mentoring. 3 of us are from the University of Otago, and 1 works in industry. Before we start our presentation, we'll briefly introduce ourselves. I'm Claire Cameron, and I'm an academic at the University of Otago and the director of the Biostat Centre there. I'll talk about the networks that I've had a hand in developing and how they have helped me thrive in my current role.
Hi everybody, I'm Lisa Thomasen and I have been a statistician in industry for the past decade. Throughout that time, I've also volunteered as part of the New Zealand Statistical Association committee, and I've taken on 2 roles, one as the early career and student representative, and more recently as the mentoring program coordinator, and I'll share more about that soon.
Kia ora koutou. My name is Alice Kim. I'm a senior research fellow in the biostatistics group at Otago Whakaiuwaka, University of Otago Faculty of Medicine, Wellington. In my role, I provide statistical advice into health sciences and medical research. Today, I'll be talking about the importance of networking for early career statisticians.
And kia ora, I'm Robin Turner. I'm Head of Department of Public Health Dunedin here at the University of Otago, and I'm going to be talking about thriving in a large organisation based on my former role as the Director of the Biostatistics Centre and thinking very carefully about supporting and managing biostatisticians. Thank you.
Okay, let me just share my screen again. Oh, hang on a minute. Let me share the right screen. Okay, so I live in Dunedin, New Zealand. I'm just going to point out, I have a tiny little map of New Zealand here. So this is where Dunedin is. It's well in the south. I grew up here. I'm a research associate professor and a director, which means I'm a research-focused academic, so I do limited teaching. I'm the director of the Biostatistics Centre at the University of Otago. There are 7 of us, 6 biostatisticians and 1 admin. Across the 3 campuses of the university, there are about a dozen biostatisticians. So the campus, there is 1 in Dunedin, 1 in Christchurch and 1 in Wellington. By biostatistician, I really mean that we're statisticians who work primarily in health-related research. I've been in a biostatistics role for 14 years, the director since 2024. I started as a research fellow, which is quite a junior position, shortly after finishing my PhD, which I did as an older person. I've always wanted to know how we can thrive in our professional lives, and I've approached aspects of this through mentoring. Prior to being a biostatistician, I worked for about 20 years as a statistician in various roles. I worked in the Department of Maths and Stats at the university, where I taught statistics, and I also did some consulting. So I've just included a picture of a ferret there because I did some of that kind of consulting. I worked at Dunedin Hospital as their information officer. I also worked in a research unit in St Andrews in Scotland for a short time. In that time, I did a master's in statistics, where I did the first application of the multi-state mark recapture model to the population of Hector's dolphins around Banks Peninsula, which is up near Christchurch. I also completed a PhD in statistics, developing an open capture recapture model for diabetes in Otago. This was my ticket into biostatistics, and my first ever job in 1990 was at Stats New Zealand. This is the current day logo. This was the perfect start for me and taught me a lot about working life. Stats New Zealand is the government department that produces New Zealand's official statistics, including the census. So in particular, they encouraged me to join the New Zealand Statistical Association, which is our professional organisation. It taught me the importance of networking with colleagues, as they had an annual gathering of mathematical statisticians when I was there, and also I learned a lot about supporting colleagues for various reasons in this role. I've worked as a statistician or biostatistician for about 35 years. For many of those years, I struggled to find a sense of belonging. I have found the statistics culture can be very hard on your confidence if you're not a particular type of statistician. I joined the biostatistics group at the University of Otago in 2011. That is when I feel I really started to find my feet. In 2013, a colleague and I formed the Boxplot Network. We even had our own logo. There were about 55 statisticians identified in the Otago region, so that's the region that Dunedin is in, or working for the University of Otago, which means it included people in Christchurch and Wellington as well. We ran 3 symposia between 2013 and 2017 and organised regular catch-ups between times. Its purpose was to get everyone knowing one another. The older statisticians I knew already knew each other, and I used to wonder about how that happened. I think knowing each other is a much better basis for contact than purely needing something. From that first Boxplot symposium came this paper. More than just numbers, challenges for professional statisticians. So it's a qualitative paper, which means that it was very hard to publish in a stats journal. The output was a number of themes that challenge professional statisticians. One of the themes that emerged from this work was professional isolation. Statisticians often get employed on their own for a particular project, for example. This is something I'm especially concerned about. Without the network and the study, we may not have known about the commonalities regarding challenges for statisticians. And this is just a photo of that first symposia, and that there in the distance is a much younger me. In 2014, I wanted to draw 2 early career biostatisticians working in other parts of the Dunedin campus into the group, and together we worked on creating a monthly biostats meeting. Each meeting had a plan so that all meetings were a good use of everyone's time. Later, I instigated including the Christchurch and Wellington biostatisticians from the university over video conferencing. There are about a dozen biostatisticians in that group. These meetings continue to this day, and we've extended the membership to include data managers at the university, thanks to Alice, our current organiser, who you'll hear from later. We also have a couple of retired biostatisticians that still like to join in on those meetings, which is fantastic. In 2015, I was asked to be the interim leader of the biostatistics group. I also chaired a divisional committee on the topic of biostats in the division, which in my university life is quite a responsible role to take, to be chairing that committee. I was still in a pretty junior position at this time. The title of interim leader of the biostats group remained non-specific because it allowed me to advocate and support anyone in our network in theory. I was in this role for 2 years until Robin Turner arrived to take the role of director of what is now the Biostats Centre in 2017. And I was not a popular person by then because biostats at that time was a very political situation. I've realised over the years that I have very strong values and I'll stand up for them, and this comes at a personal cost 100% of the time. By the time Robin Turner arrived, I was feeling burnt out. Robin will talk later about some of her work in responding to organisational structures. Having a supportive team was absolutely critical for my own well-being and success, and the biostatisticians have always been a super collegial and supportive group. I joined the caucus in 2020. I've been involved in 3 of the virtual conferences and have found the organisation to be very supportive of me and my colleagues. The older I get, the more important I think these events and organisations that are dedicated to women are. I enthusiastically joined the New Zealand Stats Association mentoring scheme. None of these represent the New Zealand Stats Association. They're just random mentoring pictures. In my opinion, this is a very important initiative for the NZSA. Alongside my networking, I've always informally been mentoring and supporting my colleagues. I think networking and mentoring are closely connected. This is all part of my concern for other people in my professional life and my own feelings of not being supported when I was a young statistician. Lisa will tell you more about this next. Adverse experiences impact on our sense of belonging and safety. Networks of like-minded people help us deal with things that happen in our lives. These networks need to feel as if they're supportive and that they're working to be worth the investment of time. Biostats at Otago has been very political over the years, and we as a group have faced many challenges that we can face together rather than as individuals. Today we have a thriving network, and I feel a sense of belonging that has eluded me in the past. I certainly hope the biostatisticians within it feel it adds to their working lives. In particular, that biostatisticians in that network do not experience professional isolation. For these networks to function, everyone needs to feel included. People need to regularly meet. Meetings need to have a purpose. Unwelcome behaviour needs to be noticed and responded to. The success of networks is not automatic. It's hard work to maintain a network over a wide geographic space. Everyone plays their part in a functioning network, and that is what allows it to thrive. So I want to say thank you to my statistical colleagues. This includes the caucus for the networking opportunities and those attending the conference. What I've learned is if you look hard enough, you will find your people and they will look after you. Finding those people is what helps you thrive. These are my immediate colleagues in the centre, and there are many, many more who make my working life enjoyable. I'm now going to pass on to Lisa. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Claire. I mentioned in my introduction that I've been a statistician in industry for a decade. And while I guess I'm moving into my mid-career stage now and feel like I'm thriving right now, in my first year or 2 as a statistician in industry, I felt like I'd been chucked in the deep end. I did not feel like I was thriving at all. I was really overwhelmed, and the transition from university to industry was a big shock to my system. At the time, I had no idea that other people found this transition just as challenging as I did at the time. I thought I was the only statistician experiencing this really challenging time. Now, with a decade of experience, I can reflect back, and what I've learned since is that there are 2 key reasons why statisticians often find it really challenging to make that transition from study to a job in industry. One of those reasons is that at university, we're learning things in a quite contained environment. All of the data sets we see are clean. They have a clear purpose with them, and it's really obvious which statistical method to choose. We get to industry, and all of a sudden, the question is complex, the data set even more so. And then you have constraints in terms of how much money you can spend, how many trials you can run, and how long it needs to take. And those deliverables are decided by people that are completely outside of the statistician's control. So you have to learn very quickly when you jump into industry that all that stuff you learned at university, those technical skills, are still relevant, but you need to learn how to apply them in a much more challenging environment. In an environment where the constraints and the challenges have completely changed how you've applied your statistics, and you need to become more pragmatic with the way you apply things. The second big challenge that I experienced was while at uni, you learn all of these technical skills. You come out with all these models, you know, statistical packages and coding skills. They do not teach you how to consult. They don't teach you how to interact with and manage your stakeholders. So if you're a consulting statistician in industry, this is a skill you inevitably have to learn on the job. One of the really challenging things with consulting as a statistician is that there are some stakeholders who are really open and welcome to having input from a statistician. And there are other stakeholders, which every statistician has experienced their fair share of these, who really do not want to take advice from a statistician, who would rather pull their teeth out than talk to a statistician and risk having been told their sample size is too small, or maybe they should consider replication. And in that first year or two as a consulting statistician, I had to navigate on my own how to interact with stakeholders who were really resistant to having my advice. I had great advice, I thought, and they were always resisting and saying, no, we don't want to take your advice. Your advice is making our work harder. I was part of a really small team of statisticians. There were 2 of us consulting around 350 researchers. We were grossly unresourced. I had no idea how to consult with stakeholders effectively, and I felt very overwhelmed. Throughout this time, though, I was part of the New Zealand Statistical Association. And I remember in that first couple of years having some conversations at conferences where people would talk about how valuable it would be if we offered mentoring as part of the association. And I remember jumping in and saying, yes, it would be. And if that was offered, I would put my hand up for a mentor. A few years rolled by and that conversation kind of popped up at various conferences and meetings of statisticians, but I didn't see anything happen. I really wanted a mentor myself, and I had no idea how to go about getting one, and I wasn't confident enough to just shoulder tap someone that I knew. After a couple of years, I realized there was a really big opportunity, and what I did was I decided to be the one who started the program for mentoring in the New Zealand Stats Association. I was really fortunate at the time that our Australian counterpart, the Statistical Society of Australia, had a year and a half prior, they had started their own mentoring program. I was able to connect with their mentoring program coordinator. I was able to pick her brain, ask her how she'd done it, what ideas she'd tried, what had worked, what hadn't worked. And I took all of that information and I adapted it to our particular association's needs. In 2022, I set up the New Zealand Statistical Association mentoring program. I started out by offering a webinar. We hadn't had mentoring in the association before. So what I did, set up a webinar, invited the whole New Zealand Stats Association to come along. And I said, this is my idea for mentoring. This is why I think mentoring is important. And this is what mentoring looks like in the context of this particular program. I defined it in terms of the expectations for a mentor and a mentee, and then I opened up an opportunity for people to sign up. We had 14 mentor-mentee pairs in that first year. And every time the program, that 6-month program came to an end, my inbox was already starting to fill up with requests saying, when can I sign up for the mentoring program? When is the next intake? We've now just completed the 4th intake of our mentoring program. We've just rounded out our 4th cohort, and over 80 New Zealand Stats Association members have been involved in the mentoring program to date. One of the amazing things for me has been hearing how this has benefited people. I myself have found benefit. I have found myself a community where I'm connected in and I'm able to chat to like-minded people facing similar problems. But the number of people who've connected with me, who've emailed me, who've reached out on my LinkedIn and said, your mentoring program connected me with somebody who was going through the exact same thing as I was. I thought I was the only one, but I connected with someone and they said, I either am experiencing that exact same thing right now and have no idea how to deal with it. Let's brainstorm it together. Or potentially, if it was someone more experienced, they said, I experienced that a few years ago, or maybe a decade ago. Here's what I did. I have had so many stories like that. And I've had even more stories from mentors saying, wow, I can't even imagine where I would have got to in my career if I had had someone guiding me as a mentor like I am doing for the early career statisticians right now. One of the mentees from the program has even reached out and said to me that he felt like having a mentor helped guide him around certain problems and challenges that he otherwise would have jumped headfirst into and have had no idea how to avoid them or get himself out of. We've also found that there's been a few people who've got involved. They've started out as a mentee in that first year or two of their career, and then they've said, hey, I've got some confidence. I'm now being a statistician for a couple of years. I have some confidence to now become a mentor and encourage the next generation of statisticians myself. What I've found as a statistician who's been part of this program, both as a mentor, a mentee, and the organizer, is that having a community around you, the opportunity to connect with other statisticians, is how you thrive as a statistician. Many of us work in small teams or in isolation in our day-to-day roles. It is vital that we have people we can connect with, share stories with, and encourage. Not only is it beneficial for us, but it's beneficial when we're able to pass on the knowledge we've learned to others that we're collaborating with. If you're considering having a mentoring program in your particular country or area, I think it's a great idea, and I'm happy to take comments and discuss it on LinkedIn with you. Or also, if you're an individual looking for a mentor, reach out and ask someone. There are plenty of people willing to help. I'll now hand over to Alice, who will share with us her experiences of being an early career statistician in New Zealand and the support that's been available to her.
Following up from Lisa's talk on mentoring, I'll now talk about the value of networking for early career statisticians. I started preparing these slides by looking up the definition of a statistician on Wikipedia. And I found this interesting report by CNBC, which rated statistician as the fastest growing job in science and technology over the next decade, with a projected growth rate of 35.4%. So be prepared to see a lot of early career statisticians entering the industry.
Excuse me, Alice.
You're seeing your desktop rather than your slides.
We're just seeing your desktop at the moment.
Okay. How's that?
Yep,
That's good.
better.
Okay, great.
Perfect.
Thank you for letting me know. Okay. Let's try again. So many statistical associations provide networks dedicated for supporting early career statisticians. In New Zealand, the NZSA Network for Early Career Statisticians are for students and those who have graduated within the last 10 years. Similarly, in Australia, they are for students and those who graduated within the last 5 years. I've worked in statistics-related area for around 10 years, so I'm on the margin of early career. And I found these networking groups and mentoring programs extremely helpful for expanding my career to date. So where are early career and student statisticians? I found this answer to frequently asked questions on Australian network site quite interesting. So early career statisticians and student statisticians are everywhere. Universities, technical institutes, governments, and companies. So we cover quite a range of organizational structures and industry types. It's important to have a goal in creating networks. The stated vision of NZSA's Early Career Statistician Network is that it be a forum for networking, mentoring, outreach, and professional development. Okay, but networking is important at every stage in one's career. So why are there groups dedicated to especially supporting early career statisticians? So external networks are helpful when you are one of few statisticians working in an organization. According to this article, co-authored by one of our panelists, Lisa, statisticians often find themselves as the only statisticians working in multidisciplinary teams. This makes it challenging for early career statisticians to build networks, learn about career progression, and develop skills needed for a successful career. For example, I am one of 3 working with a few hundred medical staff and students at our campus. I'm often the only statistician in a project. I found being in a networking group outside my own institution and outside the context of the usual hierarchy helped me discuss issues without having to worry about the potential negative impacts on my career progression. I also took part in peer mentoring program through NZSA, and I found that being in shared career stages with my fellow mentees and having similar experiences helped us support each other and create sense of community. Another area that networking helped me was developing soft skills that are important for a successful statistics career. For example, skills such as communicating ideas to non-statisticians and working on the time and budget constraints are crucial in my role, but they are not taught in during my science degree at university. And getting effective support and mentoring is especially difficult for early career statisticians who work alone in a team or an organization. And these skills are better addressed through mentoring and wider networking experiences. By the way, it's great to see that these issues have been or will be covered in more depth in other sessions today. This quote is from an article published by the Los Alamos National Laboratory in the US, which illustrates their goals as a mentor. So our goal as mentors is to develop self-sufficient, confident, and capable statisticians who are comfortable working in diverse technical areas and able to contribute to teams comprised of both non-statisticians and statisticians. So how can mentoring help early career statisticians? Mentors can support early career statisticians by helping them plan career trajectory and identify personal goals, and also help outline plans for achieving these goals. Mentees need to play their part by clearly articulating their learning and career objectives and take responsibility and accountability for their follow-up actions. So we think networking and mentoring would help early career statisticians build their career, but what's the evidence around that? So studies suggest that networking is associated with higher career satisfaction and salary growth. And networking was found to be the most robust predictor of career success. Quality mentoring has been identified as being important for people's research success, but also recruitment and retention of underrepresented groups in STEM careers. Being mentored is also important, particularly early in one's career, as it helps promote successful transition to professional independence, and it facilitates networking within one's field, which is critical to establishing and expanding their research program. It's especially important for populations who face unique career challenges, including women and marginalized individuals. So we'll expand on the last point because evidence suggests that women and minority groups have less networking opportunities. Effective mentoring can help these individuals through helping both mentee and mentors develop their own understanding of their identity and acknowledge their unique skills and barriers. Initiating conversations about diversity is especially important because often the historically advantaged populations do not recognize the unique experiences of those who are overlooked, perhaps because of institutionalized discrimination or unconscious bias. Therefore, it's critical to recognize the importance of engaging in conversations about culture and diversity and acknowledge people's unique life experiences. One interesting article on the value of mentoring noted that academic careers are no longer a linear process, but series of learning cycles. So the traditional one-to-one mentoring relationships may not be as effective as, say, a network of developmental relationships. We also know that these relationships can develop into research collaborations, the importance of which is evident in high number of multidisciplinary and multi-authored articles. I benefit from networking relationships in all these areas, and more recently, I found networking incredibly helpful in dealing with uncertainty about job security and career progression. As statisticians, we're familiar with the concept of uncertainty, but when it comes to uncertainty about job security and stability, uncertainty can be very uncomfortable. And networking and getting advice from mentors can help alleviate that discomfort. And it's also great to get a little bit of push to try new tasks, roles, and responsibilities. But all this takes effort. It takes time, effort, and it can have emotional costs. However, the benefits of networking to both individuals and organizations are immense. Networking also benefits organizations as it helps individuals find collective solutions to common problems. And emotional support from networking can help improve people's health and well-being, which in turn supports career success, professional independence, and sustainability in career. So as a final slide, I'd like to make some suggestions for networking with early career statisticians. It's important to set expectations early on and to meet in safe, neutral space and explicitly deal with power imbalance. Engage in honest conversations and also keep these conversations confidential. Thank you for your attention and congratulations to Caucus of Women in Statistics and Data Science, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of the 2025 International Day of Women in Statistics Data Science. Ka kite. And now I hand over to Robin.
Thank you, Alice. Let me just set up my slides to share. So hopefully you can all see that. It is a pleasure to be here today to talk about thinking about how we can set up an environment where statisticians or biostatisticians thrive. So this talk is, I'll use the word biostatistician a lot. The centre that I was director of from the end of 2017 till 2024 is for biostatisticians. We work in health sciences division, so we're doing health-related research. That's why I'll be focusing on the biostat side, and it's predominantly applied work, working with a wide range of people across a very large division. Just to give a little bit of background about myself, I am from New Zealand, but I'd spent much of probably my early and mid-career in Australia. I trained with the New South Wales Ministry of Health in their biostats officer training program, and I also worked at a couple of different universities in New South Wales as well. And one of the good things about that experience was I worked in all the sort of academic biostats roles that I'm aware of. So I was a teaching academic for a while in a 40-40-20 type role. I was a research only biostatistician at one point, and I also worked as a consulting biostatistician. And I think all those experiences were incredibly useful when I stepped into the director role. So I joined the biostatistics, so it wasn't called the centre back then, joined at the end of 2017, and we've been through a few different names. We're now the Biostatistics Centre, and this is the earliest photo I could find of the centre. I think it is the first photo we have as a group. I was really lucky to walk into a great group who were well connected with each other. So as Claire talked about, there was a really strong network of biostatisticians at Otago. But I think it's fair to say that there were some challenges on the Dunedin campus. There were big challenges around the view that management had of what biostatistics should and shouldn't be. And I think it's fair to say that biostatistics wasn't thriving at Dunedin when I arrived. And so all those experiences I had in the different roles leading up to that point were really helpful when thinking about what does it take for biostatisticians to thrive. So we started, the very first place we started was thinking about what is our shared understanding of our role. How do we work best? How do we add best quality to our health research? So there were many commonalities around the role and the work that we do, and it was really useful to talk about what are our boundaries, how do we engage with people across such a large division. There weren't that many of us, and it's a large division. I think, it's upwards of, I've heard at one point it might be something like 1,000 academics that we are potentially able to work with, and there's not that many as you saw in the photo of us. So how do we manage the workload? How do we make it really clear to people what our role is? And how do we set in place policies that help with that? So some of the things that we did as a group was we talked about what are our authorship policies, when should we be an author, when shouldn't we be an author? And then once we had that, how do we then communicate that outwards? With research students, when I arrived, there was the sense that there were all these projects out there where near the end, people would send their students to us expecting that we could magically do some complicated analysis to solve the problem. And it was very disconcerting to think that somehow I was supposed to have responsibility for all these projects that I wasn't aware of and hadn't designed. So it was really important to us, and we did not like seeing students who were distressed at the end of their projects, and particularly when we couldn't help and we couldn't fix some of the problems from the design stage. So we set about making really clear guidelines around what are our policies around research students. So we do offer advice in a limited way. Anything more than that would be considered supervision, and we're really clear about being brought on as supervisors from the beginning. So I think, there are many topics we could talk about in our shared understanding of our role and how we work best. It was great in that first phase to come up with that kind of agreement. One of the delightful things that we did early on is near the end of, I think it was 2018, we went to a conference in Rotorua, a statistics conference. And here's some pictures from that conference where we not only had a lot of fun, we also presented, and this is a photo of Claire presenting some of that work she did around the challenges that statisticians face. So then once internally we've got the strong agreement, the next phase was to think about, it was clear to me that people outside of our group didn't understand what we did, how we did it, and those kinds of things. So it was really important for us that we then created some kind of strategy about how we sent that message back out. So the answer, do our collaborators understand what we do? I don't think at that time many of them didn't. I hope that number who understand what we do has improved. We set about doing things like being really clear in our website about what we do and how we do that. So if anyone I've taken a screenshot of our website. If anyone's interested, if you Google Biostatistics Centre at Otago, it will take you, Otago University will take you to our website. We did a marketing video, and if you want to watch biostatisticians walking slowly across campus, you will find that in that video, but we also talk about who we are, what we do, how we engage. And you'll see that there's, in the screenshots, there's information about our vision, our mission, the guidelines we follow, information about how we can upskill people. This again was a bit of a challenge around miscommunication because people didn't have any language of biostatistics to engage with us. So we've worked on upskilling people and trying to make it as clear to everyone in our university what it is that we do and how to engage with us. We also standardised how people contact us so that we can keep a record of how many people are needing to collaborate with us and being able to manage that workload. We also set about trying to get out into all the different departments in the health sciences division. And this is a screenshot of the PowerPoint slide of the talk that we went out and did to as many departments as would take us. And it was really clear about, this is about who we are, what we do, and how you can get in touch with us. And you can see that the centre has been through a few different name changes, but it was really clear about we're academics, we are no different to any other academic, and we need to be involved from the beginning right through all aspects of the project. So the other aspect to this that I wanted to touch on was it's also important to think about the biostatisticians themselves. What does their career trajectory look like? What does promotion look like for biostatisticians? And help be a part of that career guidance and support. And I might have been running out of photos. So here's a photo of one of my cats who is an Australian cat. So in terms of promotion for biostatisticians, there, on the one hand, we're academics like everybody else, but on the other hand, in the type of applied role we have, our CVs can look different to other people. So it was really important that we explain to promotion panels why our CVs might look different, and we explain really clearly the leadership that we bring, so that we bring very specific biostatistical leadership to a project, even if we're not the primary investigator or the first author. So that was really useful to help think about what promotion looks like for biostatisticians and make sure that everyone is supported in their career and that we're not assuming that promotion panels understand what we do as well. And finally, this is a more recent photo of the centre now. I like to think, I hope that biostatistics is thriving in Dunedin, and I hope it's been useful to think through some of the sort of, I guess it's more the structural, how we work, how we manage biostatisticians in groups, the policies, the communications that we can do to really help support biostatistical thriving. Thank you. I'll pass back to Claire.
Thank you, everybody. I'd just like to say what a great team we have. And I enjoyed seeing your faces as we were talking. It feels a lot better than to be talking into the blank. Thank you for those talks. They were really great. I felt they complemented each other. We're all, well, Robin and I are in the same place, but Alice and Lisa are in different parts of the country, actually. So my talk was about starting out without a sense of belonging and forming networks to help find my way, while Lisa's talk was about feeling dissatisfied about the way things went in her work and deciding to develop a mentoring program, which is no mean feat. Yes, Alice's talk clarified for us what early careers in statistics look like and how networks feed into that and what it means for an early career statistician. And Robin's talk was a bit more about the strategy around managing statisticians in large organisations and expectations for them. I noticed actually in the chat there's a heck of a lot of interest in the mentoring program, and I'm wondering, Lisa, just to put you on the spot, if you felt like saying a little bit about that. I know you've put your email in there and there are people that have asked you questions, but I see there's quite a lot of people here, and maybe there are other people that would like to hear something a bit more about how they might make contact with you or perhaps start their own mentoring program.
Hear more on that. The program that I run is primarily targeting statisticians based in New Zealand who are members of the New Zealand Stats Association. We do have a couple of people who are part of the program who are not currently living in New Zealand, like based overseas. But the key things are they have to be a member of the New Zealand Stats Association, and they usually have some sort of connection to New Zealand, like maybe they studied here or they lived in New Zealand for a little while and maybe they're getting some postdoc experience overseas or something. So there's usually some connection to New Zealand for the people that are involved in our program. if you're not eligible for the New Zealand Statistical Association mentoring program, there are many other programs available that similar organisations run. I'm aware of similar programs running in Australia with the SSA. There's also ones in Canada. The Royal Statistical Society also runs one in the UK. There's one run in Ireland as well, and there's a bunch of other ones run in places around the world. If in your particular part of the world there isn't one, that doesn't necessarily mean you can't have a mentor. There are two different ways you could go about it. One is you might be inspired to start your own mentoring program. I'm more than happy to bounce ideas around and share some resources if anyone would like to do that. Or you may just decide to go a little smaller scale and just think about how you could find a mentor for yourself. So if anyone would like to chat with me further, you can find me on LinkedIn under Lisa Thomasen. You can also look up the New Zealand Stats Association website for more details on the mentoring program that we run. And the mentoring program email, I've popped it in the chat, but that is mentoring@stats.org.nz if anyone would like to reach out and ask questions about how to set up a mentoring program.
Thanks, Lisa. We've had a question. Thank you very much, actually. I think getting in touch with Lisa is a really good idea because, she'll be able to give you some more guidance. We've had a question from the Q&A saying, have any of you had experience with communities of practice? Maybe you can share a bit of the ups and downs. And I'm just not quite sure what is meant by a community of practice. Do any of you have any thoughts on that? I mean, is it by community of practice? Let me see. I'm not sure what that means. Maybe we could get some more clarification. Someone here has said, great points on the promotion of biostatistics, Robin. We work in biomathematics and statistics and have the same challenge in showing the direct impact of our work. Any recommendations from the experience of your biostatistics centre? So this is Altia Lorenzo asking that question.
Thank you.
Promoting biostats, I guess, is the question.
In terms of actual getting promotions up the career ladder. Yeah. I mean, I guess I took the approach of assuming that the panel won't understand, who are assessing it won't understand what we do. So making sure that a lot of times when you apply for promotion, you might have a limited amount of space in your statement that you make. It depends on the promotion process. But definitely in the CV, being really clear about the role is and what leadership means. So we would say our biostatistical leadership is shown by this. We led this. I led the design, the statistical design of the study. I led the analysis of the study. So I would, when I genuinely had led something, I would claim ownership of that and use that terminology so that the panel could understand. I would also make sure in my own personal statement, I would be really clear about biostatistical leadership is shown, and for my particular role, it was shown not only in first authorships, it was actually shown in second and third authorships. And I also had some senior authorships, which in my area were last author. So just explaining to the panel what it looks like for you, why it's leadership, how it meets the criteria.
Cool. Yep. One definition for it, we're getting back to the community of practice. Perhaps the term is more of a US-based term, a group of people who share a common interest or expertise and regularly interact to learn and improve on their knowledge and skills in a specific area. I suppose from my own experience, I guess our network is kind of like that, where we have biostatisticians who are located in different parts of the country by virtue of the way our university is set up. So, for example, Alice is organising our cross-campus meetings, and we might talk about some data management situation or a methodological question. And we find that those monthly meetings are actually quite a good opportunity if we want to talk about points of expertise or common interests. And it also means that we have an opportunity to get to know one another and see each other on these meetings, so that actually you feel more comfortable contacting another person that belongs to that same group, even though you may not necessarily work with them every day. So I personally, I feel that those regular meetings are a real boon in terms of that kind of thing. That would be our community of practice, actually. And even within the Dunedin campus, we have sort of a critical mass of biostatisticians here, fortunately. So there's the people in the centre, but there's also a few that work that are not in our centre, and we sometimes get together with them through seminars and the like. Yeah, they're the main thoughts that I have on that. Does anyone else have anything that they would like to say about that?
I was just going to add it. Oh, sorry. In my experience in the applied work we do, we probably do less of the knowledge and skills and statistical areas. We have a lot of challenges potentially with that, what Lisa was talking about, that bridging the gap with the people we work with. And I think we've spent a lot of time as a group talking about supporting each other when we have those communication challenges. I just wanted to, that community of practice is broader. It's often about our communication and working in those complex teams.
That's true, because you very rarely, in my experience, we very rarely work with another statistician. You're usually the only statistician on a project. So yes, having that broader group is actually extremely valuable.
Something to add from an industry perspective to that is that one thing I've found is that it's really important. You have a network of statisticians you can connect with from a stats community of practice, but it can be really valuable to have non-statisticians, like some of your stakeholders who are very statistically literate, value your support and understand the support you're providing, to advocate for you. So when they're interacting with other people, they see those opportunities for stats and they say, hey, this is an opportunity for you to reach out to the stats team, and hey, I've worked with Lisa. And those sort of relationships, I think, are really important. They're just as important as the relationships we foster with fellow statisticians.
Yep, that's a really, really good point, actually. Yes. One question that we'd made up for ourselves, in the absence of any other questions. Oh no, here we are. I have a question for Alice Kim. I really appreciated your points on culture and EDI. Would you have any further recommendations for how being inclusive with new members to a group network coming from different cultures, how to incorporate their perspectives and learn from their experiences as soon as possible?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question.
That's also from Altea, Lorenzo.
I see. I know that that's a very important question, and I feel that in New Zealand we're very multicultural. We have bicultural base foundation, but we acknowledge multicultural environment or current situation. And what I learned during my PhD and getting oversight from Maori professors, Maori being our indigenous people in New Zealand, is that it's really important to acknowledge that organizations and universities are not culture free. So we feel that if we join an organization, somehow it's all unique culture. There's no cultural bias, but that's not true. So I learned that during my PhD that I was actually learning and have learned Western style statistics all my life. That I have learned any indigenous knowledge or knowledge system. So that was a very important lesson for me, that I'm not, the universities aren't culture free. So it's important to acknowledge that we do start in a very quite often with statistics, we start in a Western style learning environment and knowledge. So learning about my own culture and my own implicit bias was most important for me in acknowledging that there are other people who are coming from different experiences and who have learned different knowledge systems. So I think that to address your question, it would be, I think it's most important to have an explicit conversation about that and be open to having that conversation. And also, I guess, make the space, I think in any situation, trying to address power imbalance is important. So in lecture and student relationship, supervisor and student relationship, or even in a project team, I may enter as someone early career, or I may be a core investigator, but not a primary investigator. So there's always going to be that power imbalance in situations, and acknowledging that and dealing with it and being aware. And if you're a lead investigator, trying to make sure that the early career or other investigators' views are sought and taken into account. And I think that's quite important for biostatisticians as well, because we often aren't the lead investigators, and we may provide advice, but they could be overlooked. At the end of the day, it's the primary investigators who make these decisions. So it's really important that, our roles are respected.
Thanks, Alice. That was a great answer for quite a difficult question in a short period of time. I think that if anyone wants to contact any of us outside of the session, you're more than welcome to do that. I'm assuming that can happen through the conference information that we have. And please do make contact, because we are all happy to hear from you. I think that we've reached the end of our time. The next talk is a keynote, Building Power with Code and Data, Tools for Thriving in Any Environment, by Diane Cook. And this concludes the session. We hope you enjoyed the discussion, and we encourage you to explore the remaining sessions of the conference. Thank you very much for your attendance.
Thanks very much. That was a great session. Thank you all. Bye.